Hello and welcome to Boxer Talk. I'm Shekhar Gupta, and as you can figure out from the noise in the background, which is not from me obviously, this is a very eventful day, and my guest today is none else than Saif Ali Khan.
Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Saif, at your home in
Finally.
Pataudi.
We've been planning this for months,
yes,
years.
Yes, unfortunately it had to be set up in such awful circumstances.
Yes, thank you.
I would say awful, even though it's also a kind of day when you take over.
Yes, but
as a ceremonial Nawab,
which is nothing really compared to the sadness of the day.
Absolutely. And it's also sadder still that a human being as fine as your father had to get such a rough deal to get hit by. It was like hit by a truck.
When are you talking about? At the end or at the beginning of his cricketing career?
At the beginning, he dealt with it.
Yeah.
He dealt with it better than more people would have.
Yes, no, it wasn't a very pleasant thing, obviously, for him to go through, and it certainly wasn't very nice for us to see happen. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my very worst enemy. I think it's possibly one of the most disturbing and painful ways to go.
And one of the rarest diseases with no cause.
With no cause. But after this, I've heard of a lot of people who've actually got it.
Yes, in fact, some of our mutual acquaintances as well.
Yes, so I mean that's very disturbing because it seems to have a mind of its own. This disease, it can either stall or accelerate, and in Abba's case,
that's why it's called idiopathic.
We don't know anything about it.
In some cases, it can just stick there for years. But once it gets your lungs, it gets your lungs.
Yes.
So it must have been a very big shock to the family because nobody was prepared for this.
No, and I think least of all, Abba. I think the most painful thing for us was that his tremendous will to get over it and fight it and go on holiday, and he wanted to get out of that hospital as soon as possible.
Right.
At no point did he succumb to the idea of this being what it was.
Right.
So that was sad because the doctors had pretty much told us that it is going to be fatal. It's just a terrible thing to see.
Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Yeah, terrible thing. But it also speaks for the popularity he had because he was such a benign Nawab. To the contrary of the connotations that the word Nawab has.
Yes.
That you have all these people gathered here today.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, in our family, I think it's never just been about being the Nawab or being a Nawab. I think my grandfather is as far back as I can go, unfortunately. But I think more famous for getting 100 against the Australians for Jardine and then saying he doesn't want to play bodyline.
Right.
And coming back home. Right. So acts of, I think, gentlemanly acts of...
Genuine chivalry.
Of some sort of chivalry, I think.
Because he would have said bodyline is not quite cricket.
That's what he said. He said, I don't want to field in the leg trap.
Right.
And so Jardine said, well, then you're never going to play cricket for England again. And he said, that's okay. Yeah. But we have a wonderful photograph downstairs of the scoreboard that says Pataudi 100. Not out against the Australians. So
since many of our viewers are very young, this is your grandfather, Saif Ali Khan.
So more known...
Who played every sport under the sun.
Known, yes. Hockey and polo and soccer, but so
if
that's
he was
what
around,
he meant to me.
We would have seen him at Formula 1 as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, perhaps. And again, my father, I think, less as a Nawab, to my mind. Of course, there is... his lungi and kurta and his like for classical music, but not at all. I mean, even films has a strange and rather negative connotations when it comes to Nawabs. I have a funny story about that to tell you later if you like. But
tell me now.
Well, I was dubbing for this film that I did a long time ago called Kya Kehna, and there was a dialogue in that where one of the chaps catches me because I'm not being very nice to his sister, and says, Haramzade something. So they had some censor problems about certificates, so they had to dub over Haramzada. So they said, what do we do? So the guy said, well, the producer or director said, just say Nawabzada. It's the same thing. I said, really? Okay. So it was quite funny, I think.
Did your father find it funny?
I think he must have.
But he was a funny character.
Very funny.
First of all, he was a real character.
Yes.
And second, he was genuinely funny.
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor.
So I hear stories from people who played with him.
Yeah. I mean, there was that story about when he dislocated his shoulder.
Right.
And he was in hospital and they were trying to put it back. And he was sort of shouting in pain. And the doctor said to him, Tiger, there's a woman who's just given birth to twins next door. And she's not making as much noise as you are. So he said that, well, tell her to try putting them back. So this is a
good.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.